Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Suicides are up like 800%, they say. Teen suicides are up a couple 100%. Homelessness has increased, especially children and families. And I wanted to go to the rally because I believe it was the shutdowns and these lockdowns that's been creating that type of adversity in the country, actually everywhere. I got two fines. I got one for failure to comply, a continued section of the 7.02 order under the Reopening Act. And then I had one for $750 with failed to comply with an order made during the declared emergency. I appreciate what Fight the Fines is doing in Rebel News. With Fight the Fines, I've been in been reached out to and notified of who will be helping me defend my case. I've already filed my tickets.
It definitely is something that we're exploring in terms of charter motions and different types of arguments. You do have the right to assemble. It's just, how does that play into this gathering rule? And how do we parlay that into an argument in court, which we plan to do for everybody.
Catherine Krasnowski here for Rebel News with another Fight the Fines case to share with you. David Jim Handley is a city councillor for Thorold, Ontario, who was participating in a peaceful anti-lockdown protest when he was served with tickets. If you don't know what Fight the Fines is, it is one of Rebel News' largest civil liberties projects ever. We help Canadians fight their lockdown tickets in court at no cost to them. It's an important part of what Rebel has been doing over the past year and a bit, and without the generosity of our donors, we wouldn't be able to help people like David Jim Handley. Mr. Handley was attending the St. Catharines Freedom Rally back in April and brought his 85-year-old COVID-surviving father with him. Well, unfortunately, he was handed 2 tickets for attending the event with his father. Listen to his story, but if you stick around until the end of the video, I'll get an update from our legal team on what's happening with this case today, and I'm going to ask you to get involved with his fight for freedom.
I work in a transformer station and civil construction. I'm also a Thorold City Councillor. I've been involved in politics for 2 decades in Thorold. I first ran in 1995, appointed in 1996.
Okay, so I saw in your file that you were attending a freedom rally. Can you tell us about what happened and what happened with your ticket?
Well, actually, I went down there. I didn't actually be right in the march directly, but I went down to where they were meeting on Geneva Street in St. Catharines, and I parked just on Russell Avenue. And I walked up, and I was standing there in the crowd. Actually, my 85-year-old father was standing next to me. He was down there too because he was around the corner. He asked me where I was going. I said, I'm going to go down there and listen to them and where they're doing their speeches. So I went down there, and he actually had his 94-year-old girlfriend with him too, lady friend, 94. Both COVID-19 survivors, mind you.
Wow.
So, and then I was down there, because of the lockdowns, and I see the effect that it has on the kids, and even myself, I see, even within my own family and that stuff, what the lockdowns has done, and, it's like cabin fever, depression, and how it was affecting people's housing and everything, and everybody's getting rent-eviction. Was a time for rent-eviction. It was an easy way to get tenants out, and the suffering, and suicides are up like 800%, they say. Teen suicides are up a couple 100%. Homelessness has increased, especially children and families. And I wanted to go to the rally because I believe it was the shutdowns and these lockdowns that's been creating that type of adversity in the country, actually everywhere. I don't believe there is a need for it. But I've been going to rallies. This isn't the first time I ever went to a rally, but I've gone to rallies before. In the past, about mental health, whatever that you have, or in regards to unemployment, homelessness. And it amazes me, nothing ever happened at those rallies.
Yeah.
You were speaking against the power to be. But this time, I see now that these lockdown rallies, they don't like it because, to me, people are exposing what's really going on out there. As a Canadian, we have the right to assemble, peaceful assembly, and it was a peaceful assembly. There was nothing there. We have a right to voice our opinions, supposedly. I got 2 fines. I got one for failure to comply, a continued section of the 7.02 order under the Reopening Act, and then it's actually was Section 10, subsection 1. And then I had one for $750 who failed to comply with an order made during the declared emergency 7.0.1, subsection 1 in that one. And it's just interesting that stuff. I'm just going to go to my phone here, but you know, they issue these orders, but right at the end of the order, they basically tell you that it has to all coincide with the Charter of Rights, because if you read it, when they give me the order, it says the purpose of 7.0.21 is the purpose of making orders under this section is to promote the public good by protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Ontario in times of declared emergency in a manner that is subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, 2006, 13S, so 1 subsection 4, whatever. So they have it right at the end of their own order that it's subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights. So part of that Charter of Rights is freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of movement, and that's all I was doing was exercising my right. I appreciate what Fight the Fines is doing in Rebel News. So that's and I'm appreciating, you know, with Fight the Fines, I've been in. I've been reached out to and notified of who will be helping me defend my case. I've already filed my tickets.
That's fantastic.
No court date yet. They told me 4 to 6 weeks, but should be interesting.
Isn't it interesting how David received 2 tickets while his father, who was standing next to him, received none? Is it because the police officer didn't want the bad optics associated with ticketing an elder? Begging the question, how much discretion do they have, and why aren't they using it better? Another interesting thing to note about this story is that David wasn't the only city councillor in attendance that day. He claims that his colleague, a woman who we won't name, was also there.
There was other politicians there, like me and Dave Bosman, the mayor of Westlake, and he got a summons, actually charged. He has to go to court. I think it's May 29th, whatever. And there was other councillors there. No, nothing done to them. There was even the councillor there. I, can't confirm it nor deny it, but it has been rumored that there was one councillor there from St. Catherine. And when she was approached by it, she said that she was there investigating the rally.
Apparently, when the police questioned her, she told them that she wasn't in attendance, but was rather investigating the event. Well, this was enough for the officer to use their discretion and not give her a ticket. But as I learned from our paralegal, Jenna Little, it doesn't quite work like that. What is with that? Is intent a legal defense for something like a lockdown ticket?
No, this is what's regarded as a regulatory offense. So something like intent or mens rea would be used for the majority of the time criminal offenses. So that's not something that's available here. Second of all, regardless of the reason why you're at the gathering, the law is that you can't go to these gatherings. And the fact that police spoke to them and they told them a reason why they were there, and that just wasn't good enough, that was good enough, and they didn't get tickets, whereas Mr. Hanley did, is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not like COVID, the virus can say, oh, you're here investigating, okay, I won't infect you, or I won't spread.
Well, exactly. The spirit and the intention of the law is to ensure that people don't gather in groups of more than 5, which I assume was the law at the time, regardless of why. So if you're there investigating, which I'm not really sure how that's part of the scope of a council person, you're there as an investigator, or you're there as an attendee, or you're there just as an observer, it's really irrelevant because you're still technically part of the gathering.
Right, that makes sense.
So
can that be used in a defense for David?
Probably not, because the angle that they will take is that the officers have discretion and they can charge whoever they think is right, or they can charge or not charge whoever they want, really.
Seems problematic.
It definitely
in
is.
a constitutional sense, and that would be a whole other, can of worms.
It definitely is, and it definitely is something that we're exploring in terms of charter motions and different types of arguments. You do have the right to assemble. It's just, how does that play into this gathering rule, and how do we parlay that into an argument in court, which we plan to do for everybody.
If you think it's wrong to target people based on political beliefs, you are not alone. Rebel News, in partnership with the registered Canadian charity, the Democracy Fund, is taking on the project of hooking up Canadians who are receiving unlawful lockdown tickets with top-notch criminal lawyers. Please help us continue this important work by making a donation at fightthefines.com. You will receive a charitable tax credit, so a $100 donation only costs you $80. For Rebel News, I'm Catherine Krasnowski. Please visit fightthefines.com today to help us continue this important work. Your generous donation will go directly to the Democracy Fund, where it will be used to help pay the legal costs of representing Canadians receiving unlawful tickets.